Welcome to Chronic Health Collective, where we empower you to transform every area of your life. We've gathered the best coaches and experts in the world to bring you weekly insights that will elevate your physical, mental, and spiritual well being. Whether you're looking to boost your energy, heal your relationships, or to live a more productive, balanced life, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Now, today on our episode, we have a very special guest for you. Her name is Sandra Osauska, and I'm sure I got her name wrong, but Sandra is a good friend of ours. And Sandra is very focused on healing people with Hashimoto's in the most natural way possible, just the way we like it, and paying particular attention to the specifics of every person. As a certified functional nutritional therapeutic practitioner and embracing the principles of functional medicine, Sandra helps people on the journey to wellness and to reclaim life that they might have thought they were lost to them. A life that she was able to successfully reclaim and having Hashimoto's herself. So join her on her website, healingmyhashimotos.com, and you can also see how you can start living the life that you want to live. So, Sandra, welcome to the show.
Oh, Minna, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Wonderful to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. So, Sandra, I know we're talking about Hashimoto's, and it is a heavy topic, and because I'm not familiar with Hashimoto's myself, can you tell maybe me and the audience what is Hashimoto's? I mean, to me, it sounds like teriyaki, like a Japanese dish. I'm sure it's not, but tell us what is Hashimoto's?
Absolutely. And in essence, it's an autoimmune condition where the body is attacking the thyroid, the thyroid gland, and it creates a whole host of symptoms that aren't the same in everybody, but the range, it can be anything from extreme exhaustion, brain fog, from a energetic and mental sphere, but hair loss, weight gain, always feeling cold, and so that's kind of how it manifests itself in people.
Well, I mean, all those symptoms. I don't want any of those things. I mean, the opposite. More hair, less weight. Yeah, sure. So, Sandra, how did you first know that you have Hashimoto's?
Absolutely. And it was through a blood test, thankfully, at my doctor's office that the numbers seemed strange. And it was interesting because at first I presented as a overactive thyroid. Which is interesting because Hashimoto's is the underactive version of it. And then a follow-up test revealed the opposite. So I'm not certain exactly how that transpired, but the bottom line was that I had it, and more specifically, they were antibodies that were measured. So not only did I have an underactive thyroid, but it was actually me coming back later when different symptoms were coming up, that in fact I did request to be tested for the antibodies, and that's how the Hashimoto's itself was diagnosed. But it was a long journey. It wasn't straightforward. Some misdiagnoses and things along the way. So it was really nice to finally put a label on something.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people when they go see a doctor when they have symptoms like weight gain, hair loss, a lot of doctors tend to tell you that it's in your head. I don't know if you experience that. I think it's a really long journey before they can actually help you diagnose, right? So how does that journey look like for you?
Absolutely. So for me, the journey in terms of in terms of the diagnosis, or moving forward from the diagnosis.
How did you get them to even diagnose that you have Hashimoto's? I think that was a journey that up by itself.
It was, and you're right. There is an element of it, that it could be in your head, and because one of the things, the point is really good that you're making, Minna, is that a lot of this isn't really visual, right? Like when somebody's presenting with exhaustion and brain fog, sometimes you can see when somebody's not well. They have a broken arm, or they have a cast on their
Right.
foot, so it's easy to see what's what's wrong with them. But from an autoimmune context and from the thyroid context specifically, you don't necessarily see. It's just somebody coming and telling you these things. And then the investigation starts from there, because a lot of things, if you're exhausted, well, just sleep more. Right. And if you're gaining weight, well, maybe don't have the extra muffins or something. But in reality, those aren't in play at all. It's a much different reason behind them. So I love your question, because it's, that's a really important thing to understand. How do people, even get a diagnosis?
So once you get your diagnosis, how did you and Michelle take it? Michelle is your husband, right?
He is. Yes.
How did you take it?
Um, Part of it was a relief, because it really was nice to finally know that there was a reason behind it, and also then what to do about it. And that's where lots of research came into it, how to approach this, and how to do it in a more natural way. And it finally put explanations when we would go away on a trip, and I would be tired on the trip. And, so am I overdoing it, or is it the Hashimoto's? And so it finally put some context, behind some of the things that, that I was experiencing and that we were experiencing.
Yeah, because I know that, Andy, his brother just got a kidney transplant, and before that he was on dialysis for a long time. And that is a strain on the relationship, because now he needs a lot of help. Now he's grumpy all the time. That makes your whole family grumpy, right? So how does Hashimoto's affect you and your relationships?
The I think it was different in the early stages. So because I'm so past beyond, and from where I was initially, because initially I could barely get through the day without actually trying to sleep during the day. Now I don't want to go to bed. so so there's a very, very big difference from my starting point to where I am. So I think that's really good that you bring that up, because healing can be quite a journey, and where you start, isn't necessarily where you end up. And I'm very grateful and thankful that I was able to sort of figure things out, because initially it does have impacts. Right. When you're tired all the time, and normally I'm a very energetic person, but it didn't matter how much I slept, I was still exhausted. And so yeah, that's a really good point.
So I think you make a really good point. You actually managed to figure things out, and that's actually a lot of where a lot of people can't. Like that's what holding them back, because they couldn't figure it out. So how did you actually figure it out?
I absolutely love that. And if I were to say it was a straight line, that would be so wrong, because there's a lot of trial and error, and at times things would seem to work and then not work, and then you'd have to second guess it, meaning, was it still a direction I should go in but approach it differently, or was that just something that wasn't going to work and I should try a different approach? So kind of my journey was sort of like that.
Like a roller
Um,
coaster.
but what was really exciting is that I could start to see uh, hints of my old life coming back. And so that's what really propelled me forward. It's like, okay, so maybe this isn't, completely going to get me there, but it's a step. And then I do something else and it would be another step. And I could feel it. And it was manifesting itself, I mean, very physically, the positive changes that were happening. And but yes, it was certainly not a straight journey, and it was over years, Minna. Like, to say that I just sort of woke up and blinked my eyes and went, yep, okay, all good. that wouldn't be true, because it wasn't. It was years. It was
Yeah,
years,
it
for
took you.
sure.
So Sandra, were you put on medication in the beginning?
I was, and it was a typical prescription that most people get, and it was interesting because over time I kept requiring a heavier dose, and so I was
Mhm.
being prescribed this, heavier dose.
Right.
And then at one point, I jokingly, not jokingly, said to my doctor, it's like, at this trajectory, I'm actually, because the company didn't even make it past a certain dose. I said, so am I just going to be like taking handfuls to make up like the dose? Like what happens when, and,
Yeah.
and the other thing, Minna, that was really disheartening is the higher the dose, the worse I started to feel. And so those were warning bells that, it seemed to be controlling some of the numbers, but if I'm physically getting worse, then I think we need to regroup. So,
So then what did you do now, now that you can see that, having a bigger dose doesn't always help. It's kind of like the sleeping pill thing, right? You keep taking more and more, you keep sleeping less and less. So how did you turn that around?
I have an amazingly supportive doctor. And so what I'm actually not advocating this for anybody because it may not be in their particular circumstance to
Right.
do this. So this is not me saying
Everyone's different.
go duplicate this. This is something that you really need to discuss with your doctor who understands your condition and the specifics. But I actually went off of my medication and with her
Like
support.
100% cold turkey?
Oh, sorry.
Like 100% you just cut it off, cold turkey?
Yeah, I did. But simultaneously, I was also being supported homeopathically. So,
What is that?
so
So what is involved in the homeopathic path?
absolutely. So I have just like my physician here is amazing. I also have a great homeopathic doctor located in Toronto, Canada, and he is very well known, and I felt very comfortable with him. I had been with him for years, but he's been able to manage things nicely for me, and so I'm very grateful. And again, it's about communication because he needs to know what's going on if anything changes, because then perhaps he needs to adjust what he's doing. So it's an active approach. It's not sort of like you just forget things and go on. But for the most part, you can forget things and go on. Once you start getting all the ducks in order, you get your diet going properly, you get your lifestyle worked out, you get stress and other factors that may worsen conditions. And sort of once you start getting these elements in control, you can really go on to kind of forget about things.
So how did your family take it when you say you're gonna basically cut out the medicine and go a different path altogether? How did they react to it?
Polarized. I love that. So there are ones in my family who were very supportive and thought that was really great. They know my homeopath. They've also gone to my homeopath, so they felt very comfortable and excited that this was a path I was going to go down. And of course, then there were the others that. Even if you Google it, Minna, can I go off of my thyroid medication? And there's things, no, you will die, you will this.
Right.
And I'm not minimizing that because truly, in some circumstances, again, I'm not a medical physician. And so, I think if somebody's entertaining these thoughts, they really need to do it with their doctor. They really need to do that.
So, I know you wanted to talk about healthy boundaries in your relationships. What does that look like when you're dealing with Hashimoto's or any kind of autoimmune?
Absolutely. I think the key thing is knowing that each day is not necessarily the same, because sometimes there can be stressors or things that will actually kick off a flare up. And so for anybody that has an autoimmune condition, they're going, yeah, flare up. We know what she's talking about. And so if that's the case, you just need to say, okay, I'm having a flare. Right. I'm having a flare. My husband knows full well what what the flare means. And it just means that maybe I'm going to have, the next couple of days might just be lighter days, right? I just might, and lighter meaning maybe I'm just going to rest a little bit more. Maybe I'm going to take fewer things on in a particular day. Whatever works for some person, right? Everybody's got their way of addressing things. But for me, those are what put me back on track is, they get you over the flare.
Hmm. So, Sandra, I do want to talk about stress a little bit more, but let's take a break first, and then when we come back, we'll talk about that.
Perfect, Minna. Thanks.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take control of your well-being. From the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Are you ready to finally unlock your biggest dreams and live the life you've always wanted? I'm Candice McKim, and I invite you to join me in the manifestation magic process. Whether you're dreaming of that perfect business, financial freedom, or more joy in your life, it's all possible. With Manifestation Magic, you'll shatter common misconceptions that keep holding you back, learn the secrets of attracting your deepest desires, and activate the magic of sacred synchronicity. Head to CandiceMcKim.com and start creating the life of your dreams today.
Welcome back to Chronic Health Collective. So, Sandra, before the break, we were talking about stressors to Hashimoto's. Did you ever figure out what kind of stressors would make you feel worse?
Yeah, absolutely, Minna. For sure. And there's sort of categories. There's the physical category where you've just done too much. You've done a lot of gardening, maybe you've gone for a hike, you've been bicycle riding, you've been doing different things. And so there's the physical part of it where your body just goes, okay, that was it might have been fun, but your body is giving you feedback saying, yeah, that was overdone. So certainly there's the physical side of things, but then there's the sort of emotional side of things, when you're trying to do and get too much accomplished at one particular point and, too much on your plate. And for that, it's really about reframing, different techniques, whether they're meditative techniques or just reframing a situation in terms of going, okay, this is the situation. Is it really that bad? And putting things in context. And so those were some of the coping mechanisms, because you're right, it's very important. A lot of us don't realize that certain things cause us stress because we're busy in the day and the day goes on and we don't, we just think everything is fine. But if you step back and really analyze elements of your day, you can see that, oh my goodness, okay, these things all brought me joy, but wow, okay, something's going on with this one. And so it just allows you to look at your life and put things into, to try to understand them, put them into context, for sure.
So, is there any time that you feel like you're like criticizing yourself because you're maybe not able to exercise more, or not able to travel longer, or not able to work as hard. Did that happen to you?
You bet. And I think more early on, because now again, because things are so for lack of a better word, so well controlled, right, that I'm able to sort of know my boundaries, and I'm able to have fairly large boundaries, so I don't really feel constrained.
Mm.
But oh my goodness, Minna, before it was it was like, are you kidding me? It's like, going and doing literally nothing would on from my perspective cause something catastrophic on the health end. And I'm like, wow, that's so it was frustrating because I had this very busy, amazing life before, and then all of this stuff was going on, and there were elements that I just couldn't do any longer. So for sure, there's a huge emotional aspect to all of this.
So how did you deal with it? Is there like some kind of tips you can share with the viewers on how you get over that?
Absolutely. One of the key things is to know that you can, just because of how you are right now today doesn't necessarily, it won't necessarily be how you'll be down the road. Right, that there can be some hope, and for people to not give up, because again, some people might be watching this going, oh well, I've tried these 3 things and they didn't work, and so this is how I'm going to be forever. And I certainly had those same thoughts, because when I did my years of going in a circle, you do think that, because you think there is no way out, and so you begin to think that is, the new normal, right? The new normal, that things aren't really good and that they'll probably get worse. And so that's what I would love for people to embrace, if they can think that there can be a different way. And there's so many groups out there, Minna, that provide support and show that you can take control of this situation. So I think that's really important, just for people to have hope, right? It can be different.
So, what I was trying to say is, I feel like a tipping point is when you realize that taking medication to the max is eventually going to be not enough, right? And I feel like that's not even just for Hashimoto's, that's for other autoimmune diseases also. Um, how did you? I don't know what's the best way to. How did you cope with it? Like, how did you know that there's a different way to handle this, right? Some people just lose hope, right? They just say, "Oh, that's going to be the end of me. That's going to be me from this point on. I'm just going to lay in bed and not move." But you managed to turn it around. That's amazing, right? So I think I want to know how about what goes on in your head during the time, and what actions did you take to turn that around? That is amazing to me.
Oh no, that's sweet, Minna. Thank you. And that is important. And in essence, I think it was once I started seeing other people out there, on different websites and different different literature, that you would read things and you could see how some people seem to turn that around. So that got my curiosity, for sure. So I think that was one of the main things that got me going, was curiosity. It's like, well, either these things are true or not, right? Meaning that, maybe the person's making it up and they're really not better, or in fact, maybe they are better. And if they're better, could I be one of those people? Right? It was sort of, me thinking that I could possibly be that, and then just researching and again, trying the different things. If it was a type of diet, then I would start the diet and I would refine it. And one of the, I went through the elimination diet, and it was so intriguing, Minna, because I love eggs. Oh, I've eaten eggs since I was small. And so it's really interesting, because I was reintroducing eggs, and I got the most amazing rash. I'm like, and I'm like, what? And of course, I'm thinking, no, it cannot be the eggs because I've eaten them for like the last 1,000 years. So it's not.
Yeah.
So then I backed things up. And so I ate cleanly and I wanted to reintroduce eggs again because I'm thinking there's no way, when I reintroduce them that's going to happen again. And it was wild because I reintroduced the eggs, got the exact same rash. And I'm like, well, isn't that a message? And I was so excited, not from the perspective that eggs have a lot of nutrients that are very important to have, but from the perspective that it's like, what else am I eating that's actually causing various reactions in my body that for people with autoimmune conditions, you really can't be adding inflammation and things in your body. You can't be doing that to heal, right? It'll take, it'll be harder to heal. It might take you longer to heal. You have to really look at inflammation. And so I went down that whole path.
So at some point, Sandra, I think you try to turn that around. You start educating yourself, right? Because now you're a specialist in functional nutrition. Tell us more about it. How did you went from I want to say like a victim of Hashimoto's to managing it and basically overcoming it like that? What brought you to that kind of education?
Absolutely. One, it was really it kind of led down a path because the first thing is that I really just wanted to have a different life. I wanted to reclaim my old life. So that was propelling me for sure. And so that was a huge element of, how can I make this different for me? And then the other aspect after that was now I want to help other people who are in the exact same spot. And I find it so sad because a lot of people are really suffering from the symptoms and their lives are impacted. And it's like, I want people to know that you do have options, right? There are options for you. And so that's what really got me going. I had no intention when I was doing this to be helping other people with this. I just wanted to figure out, how can I get through my day and still be okay at the end of the day. And now that I'm very blessed and fortunate to be there, it's like I want other people to not have to go in a circle, right? I don't want them to spend years. I don't want them to go in circles because all that does is waste time. It frustrates you. You're missing out out on life and with your family and friends. So I just want people to know there's a different way of addressing things.
And that's incredible, right? Because, Sandra, you mentioned that, you were looking at the websites on how other people have done it. And now that you've done it, you're paying it forward by helping other people. I think that's amazing. And, I'm sure a lot of people are thankful that you're doing what you do. Can you give us maybe some like actionable advice on self-care routines that actually help you overcome your Hashimoto's?
Absolutely. I think one of the best things is being able to sort of quiet the noise down on your life to understand what gives you energy and what takes your energy and causes stress. So, if it even comes down to even making a list for some people to add all the things that invigorate you and excite you and make you want to get up in the morning. And the other would just be things that, okay, what's in the list that doesn't seem to be working well on whatever it is, but it's just so you can start to understand the stressors in your life. And put them into context because most people do have stress. And so that can be a fact of life. And so if that's the case, how do you manage it? How do you deal with it? Because you're the one who gets to decide your response to stress. So, depending on what it is, you can either go, oh my goodness, and you can, be negatively impacted, or you can go, okay, well, that's happened or it's happening. And, this is what I'm going to do with it. This is my plan to overcome it and move on. And so those are different strategies. So for sure, I think one is to understand the messages of your body too. right? Sometimes, our bodies can be screaming at us. If you've continually got headaches, if you've, always have pains in that, well, that's your body's way of saying something isn't really working out, because you shouldn't have headaches. You shouldn't have pains in your body. So if you
Yeah.
are,
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that actually just got used to headaches, migraines or whatnot, like different types of pains, and they don't think much about it. But it's actually a big red, a red sign that that something's going on with your body, right? So, Sandra, for you, what I know you mentioned eggs. That's one of your stressors. Are there some other stressors that you have experienced for you?
So definitely on the physical side. So if I do too much physically, that's that can lead to a flare up. So food, and there are some other things besides eggs, Minna. There's more on the list. What's that about? But again, it's important to know. So stressors, food, and just life. Life situations. Just be aware of things that things that are impacting you. I think that's one of the critical things. And that can change over time. When you get more resilient, fewer things can bother you potentially, or at least you have a toolkit for how to deal with them.
So when you stop eating eggs, does your family stop eating eggs?
That's good. Actually, no. Michelle eats eggs, and Nigel, our dog, eats eggs. They enjoy eggs, and it's interesting because one of the things, whether this is right or wrong, but I've been able to have little cheats, so to speak, little cheat days, because sometimes there are nutrients. There's certain things you get from certain foods that are really difficult to get from other sources, other than if you obviously supplement. But I prefer, when I can, to take it from food. So yes, you might actually see me eating an omelet at some point, Minna. And but it's rare. It's rare. And when I do that, I don't get the rash back. So I don't know if that's an indication that perhaps I have more resilience, maybe healthier gut issues, where these things aren't having the impact that they did before. But I don't like to have cheat days, and I don't have many, because I found, with how I've kind of created what works for me, is that it's actually pretty good. And I don't really miss a lot of the other things that I was doing. So whether that's brainwashing on myself, you will like this. I don't know, but however I've come to embrace it, it seems to me that it's really, I don't really see it as a loss. I see all of this as ways that gave me back my freedom. So I've that's how I really see it. In my mind, it's really not about a loss. I had the loss before, and now I feel like I'm very fortunate to have gained back what I did. And I mean, it really wasn't that much of a loss, to be honest, in retrospect, looking back, because it was also my body telling me that I needed to look at things. So I need to honor my body for those messages.
So do you feel like it's something that you have under control, or does it still come up and surprise you once in a while?
I would say for the most part under control. It's when my overzealousness for wanting to do things that sometimes I will get a sign, I will get a glimpse. But what really is wonderful from a homeopathic perspective is literally I know what I need to do. So before, when I would have a flare, and it would be days long and just sort of go on, I'm able to really take care of things really quickly. So instead of having this sort of wild pendulum swing between, I was good and now it's really bad, when I do, or if I do have swings, they're just tiny ones, and I know how to rebalance. I know how to bring it back. So it's no longer this multi-day event. It's just sort of like, okay, I need to address it, and I will. And it's different. It's changed over time, Minna. It has changed.
Yeah, I think I want to dig a little deeper into your lifestyle changes, Sandra. But let's take a break first, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little more about your lifestyle.
Sounds perfect.
Is like a lightning rod. It's energy that's coming in, tremendous energy that's coming in. It's up to every single one of us of what we're going to do with that energy.
Welcome back to Chronic Health Collective. So, Sandra, before the break, we were talking about eggs and lifestyle and all that. So it sounds like you have went through a journey of figuring out what is the lifestyle you needed to take to manage Hashimoto's. Because I don't think it's actually something that you can get rid of. It's just you have it under control, and I think that is amazing. Tell us about what what the diet looks like that would be beneficial for someone that has Hashimoto's.
Absolutely. And from a dietary perspective, I think a lot of it, like, first of all, it's about eating nutrient dense food. So things that are not processed, things that are as close to their natural state as possible, eating lots of colorful things, because then you're getting your antioxidants. I did try to be a vegetarian years ago, figured out, no, that wasn't that wasn't the thing for me. And I think that the big takeaway is that this is so bio-individual, meaning that I think the diet that's perfect for you, Minna, might be different for what it is for me and somebody else. And so I really encourage anybody to figure out, from a like an allergy sensitivity perspective, to figure out what you shouldn't be eating. One of the other things that I do, it's called the blood type diet. And it's really not a diet per se. It's not about losing weight, but it's diets that have, or protocols would be more the word, that are suitable, that as an A, B, or ABO, or whatever, that you should eat for your blood type, just because of how certain foods react in those specific bodies. So I did introduce that, and I do find that makes a difference. But again, that's for me, right? The diet is so personal. So I really encourage people, to look at what's best for them. But I definitely have a hierarchy of lifestyle things, and sleep, Minna, sleep is definitely at the top. It really is.
So let's talk about food because me and Andy loves food.
You
So
do. I know. I love your posts.
you mentioned that the blood type, different blood types have different needs, right? How did you manage it as a family then? Because like you and Michelle, you may have different, I don't know, you have different blood types or not,
We
but
do.
how do you manage, different, when you're eating together, what do you do?
That's fabulous. So if you looked at our stove, there's a lot of common foods. So there are things that are either neutral for both of us, or even beneficial for both of us. But I do try to ensure that he doesn't have any of his avoid foods and I don't have mine. But sometimes I'll be, that's yours, that's mine. And I realize that that's not, it's not really sustainable for most people, and it's, to be making multiple meals. But it's easy enough if you put lists together of common foods, and then just the things that you should be eating and that somebody else should be eating. It's really easy to just inject a couple of their foods and just have the common foods for the whole family. But you're right. Sometimes it is funny because I'll actually point and I'll be like, that's not for you. That's not for you, but that's yours. That's yours. And I know somebody looking in might think that's very odd that I'm sort of, allocating food to different people. But I do. And again, there's a lot of common things. So it's not as difficult as it sounds. It's not that difficult.
So just for the fun of it, are there any foods that's good for you but you hate it?
That's, I have to go back to the list I'm thinking, because for the most part, because turkey is a beneficial food for me, and a lot of the vegetables. Oh wait, snails. There you go. Escargot, snails.
Oh,
That would be highly beneficial for my group. And I just that's hilarious, Minna, that you say that. Yep, I cannot do those. So yep, there you go. There.
I get it. I know it's just like for us, the bitter melon is supposed to be beneficial for Asian people, but I cannot get it through my mouth, right?
I understand.
So let's talk about, on top of your diet, do you and Michelle exercise together? Do you do separate exercise routines? What do you do?
That's interesting. That's a function on really schedules. But so yes, we often build it in. For instance, when we go away on a vacation, we'll be hiking. We often go to the Adirondack Mountains, which are in New York, which isn't too far from where we are. So we'll take our bells for the bears. They're supposed to repel bears. I'm not sure, or whether it just makes us look funny with our bells, but so we'll do things like that. So we'll actually take a vacation that builds that in, that builds in hiking, into the mountains, or if we do, different other types of things, just even walking around with Nigel, our dog. It's like, let's go for a walk, and he's quite athletic, our dog, so he doesn't let us off easy. he's just little, so I thought we'd be, I thought he'd be sort of a couch puppy, but no, he wants to walk, so he makes sure that we do our fair share.
What other exercises do you do?
Swimming as well. Actually, so we do lots of swimming. The Michael Phelps pools, the swimming spots. So we literally just swim in the same spot. And that's good. That's good exercise, being in the water. And so we do that as well.
So do you do anything like Pilates, yoga, that kind of thing?
I do that too. Not Michelle. So I am although he did do yoga, he did a bit of yoga, but I absolutely, I love Pilates. I love yoga, and also bar exercises. So, so I love doing that. I think at one point, the highest I got up to, I think 4 days a week, I was doing that.
That's amazing. I mean, bar, I tried it a few times. It was hard.
It was lots of fun, but I agree with you, it's hard.
So then after your exercise, how do you restore yourself?
Absolutely. And it's, I think that's actually a really important question, because it's a lot of balance. And so it's about balancing the activity with also some downtime. And downtime can mean a number of things. For me, what I find restorative is reading. Doing reading or doing some writing. I find that really brings a lot of energy back to me. And so that's what I'll do. If something's been particularly busy, then I'll just be like, okay, I'm going to go off and do this or do that, or just, just sitting around talking and things like that. That all helps to rebalance and give back energy.
Yeah, because even for normal people, when they over exercise, and a lot of people don't know how to recover properly. And when you have autoimmune condition, I think it's even more important that you know how to restore yourself, right? So restorative practices, I feel like it's actually more important, right? So what does your sleep routine look like?
Well, it's not as good as it should be. I'll talk about what's ideal, because what is ideal, Minna, is in essence, people follow the circadian rhythms. And so what that means is that you go to bed typically around, somewhere between 10, 11 p.m. You wake up early in the morning, and to different theories, it's when different organs of the body rejuvenate themselves, detox, things like that. So that is ideal. But Michelle and I are both nighthawks. And so I have friends and family who are like, they're not certain we sleep. And one of our friends actually makes a joke. She's our neighbor across the road. And she believes we have neighborhood watch, because all the neighbors are awake during the day, but Michelle and I are awake at night, making sure the neighborhood is great. But in essence, even though I push it, I know, back to what you had asked earlier, is that you get messages when it's like, okay, you are a nighthawk, you've had your fun, but tonight needs to be an earlier night. And so it is, right? So then I do listen, because you know what happens if you don't.
Wow. So on top of your diet, your exercise, your sleep, do you like supplement and are you still on medication or some kind of therapies?
Correct. So I do desiccated. So I do the desiccated hormone and homeopathy.
Wow. Okay. So is that is that something you have to schedule to do, or you just what you do when you feel like you needed it?
With the desiccated, I take that on a regular basis. So that is regulated. With the homeopathy to deal with the flares and things like that, that's just when I need it.
Okay. So Sandra, let's talk about you have a website, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help people deal with Hashimoto's? Like, what's on your website? How are you helping other people? Let's talk about that.
That's perfect, Minna. Absolutely. And so in essence, there's a couple of ways, because one is that I do have a program that takes people through, in essence, all of the elements that need to be considered that I personally used to get me back on track. And so it's about taking them through that particular journey, but being specific to their, their biology, right? Because again, everybody that has this has different things potentially not working, right? And so it's about looking at what's not working for a particular person. But I also one-on-one, I also deal with people one-on-one who want sort of more touch points and who want more guidance, more specific guidance, and more ongoing guidance, right? So as they're navigating the different parts of healing, because again, healing isn't always necessarily this nice little package that just, you open the bow and go, I'm healed. There's elements to it. And so, so for people who haven't gone through it before, sometimes it's easier to have somebody who has kind of take you through of what you can expect and what could be normal and what's not normal. And if things need to be changed, then, okay, how do we change them? Because that's a lot of what I had to do. Some things that other people were doing weren't working for me. So it's about working out what you need, what works for you best.
Which is interesting because I have a quirky question for you. And that's exactly what you talk about. If you have a little magic packet, what would you put into it?
Perfect. The magic, I love that. What would be in there would when you would open it up would be possibilities. That's what would be in there. Because you touched on it a little bit earlier, Minna, that, I think when we were talking about headaches, right, that people just expect, I feel bad, but that's just normal. And I've got this and that's just normal. And what I want people to know is that there are possibilities. And even with a diagnosis, right, like an autoimmune diagnosis, that there are possibilities and just, what you may be told through certain channels of what to expect, that doesn't have to necessarily be your trajectory, right? Maybe there's other possibilities for you. So that was a great question. That I love that, Minna. Yeah, for sure.
I think it is amazing that Sandra, you've been through this whole journey and you're putting yourself up to help other people to go through a similar journey as you, and you're helping them diagnose, maybe not diagnose, but figure out what the journey would look like. And I think that is amazing, Sandra. So is there any last words to our viewers before we wrap things up?
No, I think this is absolutely perfect, Min. I'm so thrilled to be able to, to share this with you and others, and thank you. And just, for people to know that, reclaim your life.
Yeah, Sandra, I think this is an amazing interview. I'm glad you're here with us. And, you sharing us with your story gives a lot of people hope that, they can go through a similar journey that you have. And I think there are actually a lot of millions of people that is trying to figure things out. And you did, and that you're giving them hope. You're that little packet that they needed.
Well, thank you, Minna. No, I'm really happy. And, healing can look a number of different ways. The bottom line is, that you feel better, however we get somebody there. And I know that that's important for you and Andy, right? Making, people.
For sure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sandra, for joining us today. So visit us at chronichealthcollective.com. We have a monthly magazine, and it's packed with expert advice with 13 amazing life coaches, including Sandra here. And when you're there, set up your first discovery call with the coach who can help you tackle the challenges you're facing right away and inspire you to live your best chronically healthy life. So next week, we have Amanda Johnson. Join us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. CST for more tips to level up every aspect of your life. And if you missed the episode, you can always go to e360tv.com. We are also on YouTube at Chronic Health Collective. So until next time, stay healthy, stay inspired, and as always, live your chronically healthy life. See you next week.